Hey, Space for Basic Official, and welcome to today's episode. Today we are talking about your diet and why it's important, how to eat, all that type of stuff. It's not going to be similar to my other video. If I haven't released it yet, I will release another video about diet. If I have released it, this is different to it, so keep that in mind. The diet. Now the first thing that made me take my diet seriously, because the diet is extremely important. 190%, so important. There was one thing, because I kind of had my diet like okay, I kind of cared and then kind of didn't care at some points, but the one thing that made me serious about my diet was the saying, you are what you eat. I don't know where it came from, don't know where I heard it, but the saying, you are what you eat, changed my outlook on food. Because, don't know if you've heard about this fact, but there's a fact that, so your body naturally replaces cells die off and your body replaces it. Where does it get the building blocks to replace it from? What you eat. So you literally are rebuilding your body with what you put in your mouth. You don't want to be made of processed garbage. You want to be made of high quality amino acids, carbohydrates, fats, all of that like stuff. You want to be made of high quality foods. And the fact I was referring to is that your entirety of your body's cells replace every 7 to 10 years. So every 7 to 10 years you are a completely different person biologically. How mad is that? Apart from a couple areas of the brain which have recently been shown to not come back when they die off, to do with the aging process and stuff, but every 7 to 10 years the majority of your cells completely die off and get reborn out of the food you eat. So that fact made me completely flip my mind on the diet. Ponder it for a bit and hopefully it will do the same to you. But I've written here kind of the effects, what the diet affects in your life, in your body. It affects your recovery because when you stress the body, stress the musculature, tendons, ligaments, connective tissues, all of that stuff, it breaks it down and it needs to build itself back up again. So the quality of food you put into your body is the quality of the tissues that are built, because it has to take the building blocks from somewhere, and it's from what you eat and what you digest, assimilate and absorb in your stomach. Super important for recovery, just because you eat the building blocks of your muscles. There we go, there's a quote, put that on a t-shirt. You eat the building blocks of your gains. Energy. Obviously food affects energy. If you eat crap, you'll feel like crap. If you eat amazing food, you're going to feel amazing and full of energy. That's why a lot of people who go onto a plant-based diet find that they have a bunch more energy, because prior to that, they were eating the standard kind of Western diet, and when they moved to plant-based, they were eating so many vegetables, so many nutrients, minerals, etc., getting into their body, and it just makes you feel amazing. Digestion. Food affects digestion. Who would it do? It's so important because people have intolerances. I know this, you know this, everybody knows this. Food causes intolerances in lots of people. Causes inflammation in lots of people because of their intolerances. Most of the world have intolerances that they don't know about, and it's screwing them up. Digestion is so important. If you eat poor foods, your digestion will be off, meaning you absorb and assimilate less foods, meaning less food for recovery, less food for injury, and everything else I'm going to talk about. The food you eat affects your digestion. Functions of muscles, specifically the abdominal wall. Now, why I've said specifically the abdominal wall is because the nerves that innervate, the nerves that kind of reach out into your core, your abdominal wall, they also reach out to your gut and your intestines. And your body's adapted amazingly over thousands and hundreds of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years for survival. And the function of your organs is so much more important for survival than the function of the muscles surrounding those organs. So if you eat food that you have an inflammatory response to, the body will focus all of its attention on healing the organ, healing the gut, instead of activating the core musculature how it's supposed to be kind of activated. So if you are gluten intolerant and you don't know, or you're ignorant, purposefully ignorant, I used to be, then you eat gluten, you have an inflamed stomach, and then your core shuts down. And you do that for a long amount of time, your core shuts down, and people have back pain. So people will go into a physio with back pain, and they get maybe a massage or some stretches for their back pain, but it's because they're eating gluten. It's shutting down their core musculature, which makes the body adapt, and the back starts to hurt. So important. Emotions and mental state. I learned about this recently, which absolutely blew my mind. There are things in the brain called neurotransmitters, well, things in the body called neurotransmitters, and they affect emotions, mental state, and all different types of really important stuff. And I think the number was 70%, I think maybe even closer to 80% of neurotransmitters made in the body are made in the gut. And so the health of your gut, the gut environment, that's affected by the foods you eat. If you eat toxic food, you disrupt it all, and your neurotransmitters obviously will go off. So then you get things like depression, you get things like feeling bad, feeling clouded, foggy-headed, all of these different things because of the food that you eat. Immune system. Your immune system is so important, and it is directly influenced by your diet. The things that you eat affect your immune system. That's why you need to eat things, lots of minerals, vitamins, cover all your bases, because all of those are involved in chemical reactions to do with the immune system. Extremely important. Disease links partly into immune system, but other things such as type 2 diabetes, that is almost 100% down to your diet. And even Alzheimer's disease, they've recently been starting to call it type 3 diabetes. It's to do with an insulin resistance in the brain. Type 3 diabetes. That is so crazy. So crazy. So, what are we going to talk about next? Let's talk about a guy called Roger Williams. In 1956, he released a book, I think, called Biochemical Individuality. And in this book, it kind of proved and outlined how different everybody is. How completely different. Down to the shape, size, location of organs. Down to the amount of water in blood and plasma and ability to carry oxygen. And down to metabolism. Every single person's metabolism is different, and they metabolize different foods differently. Biochemical individuality is extremely important to understand the fact that everybody's ideal diet will be different from one another. How can you have different size, shapes, locations of your organs, different ability to metabolize different products differently, and have the same diet as somebody else? You can't. It doesn't make any sense when you think about it like that. So you need to listen to your body. Now, there was a guy called William Walcott, and he came out with a book called The Metabolic Typing Diet, I think. And in that book, generally, there are 3 types of people. Kind of protein people, carb people, and mixed people. Protein people metabolize carbohydrates extremely fast, so they need more proteins and fats to satiate them. Carbohydrate people metabolize proteins and fats extremely fast, so they need more carbohydrates per meal. And mixed can be a bit of both. They will tend to lean towards one or the other, but they change consistently. So it's very hard to pinpoint it. You need to be extremely in tune with your body to understand what your body wants if you're a mixed eater. Even if you're a protein or a carbohydrate eater, it changes. So it really kind of takes some effort to get to know yourself. So these are the meal proportions. There's a book called How to Eat, Move and Be Healthy, and these are the meal proportions proposed in that book. If your protein, and this is for each meal, so this would be overall kind of macros, I guess, but the meal proportions are suggested to increase nutrient availability and to increase digestion. So for protein types, you want to start with 45% protein, 20% fat and 35% carbohydrates in the proportion of one meal. Carbohydrates, 20% protein, 10% fats and 70% carbohydrates, and mixed 40% protein, 10% fats and 50% carbohydrates. This is the starting point. From here you should experiment with each of these different variables to see what makes you feel the best. And know that they change maybe even 3 times in one day. So your body might need one thing for breakfast, another thing for lunch, and another thing for dinner. But this is a great place to start. Interestingly, ketogenic diet is becoming massive, and for those of you who don't know what a ketogenic diet is, from what I understand, it's very low carb to no carb, no carb diet. So you eat very high fat, so you focus on the fat, so like 75% fat, and then the rest in protein. And people have great kind of results with that, but the long term, I don't know. I've really looked into it. It's interesting, so I might give it a little look. But this is kind of what I will be following and have been following for the past few months. Oh no, don't freak out, I was just reviewing the footage and it turns out that a whole chunk in the middle is missing, so I'll cover it right now. I actually went for a shower and got changed into my pyjamas, so that's why I look half naked right now. If you can't see my legs, I probably look fully naked. But basically, I was covering this topic in green here. The kind of points that you may want to follow. You want to eat organic foods, so organic vegetables, organic meats. If price is kind of an issue, because organic food is more expensive, you want to focus on buying organic meats. The meats are probably the most toxic thing most people eating a healthy diet are consuming. So focus on organic meats over organic vegetables if you haven't got the finances, and be careful of buying fake organic. So big supermarkets tend to promote foods as organic when really they're not. They just pay a lot of money so that they can call it organic. You want to go to local farmers markets and local farms and those types of places. Find out how they're raising their plants and animals and make an informed decision. Second thing I wrote was you want to eat whole foods. You want to focus on the whole foods, like sweet potatoes, like things that grow out of the ground or walk on the ground. That's pretty much what you want to be eating. Try and avoid things that have most things that have packets, that come straight out of factories or laboratories, that type of thing. Because you need to remember that you are what you eat. So if you eat poor quality foods, you're gonna have a poor quality body. If you eat high quality foods, you're gonna have a high quality body. The next thing I talk about is metabolic type. You'll get into that right now. Pay attention to your metabolic type. If you're a protein carb or mixed, look it up online, the metabolic typing diet, and there's questionnaires that you can fill out to help you try and find it out. But I kind of had a feeling I knew which one I was, just a gut feeling, so I went with it. So I read a book, I can't remember what it's called. It's so annoying. I lent the book out to someone, so I can't even go and find the book. But the book was based on the premises that processed sugar, flour, and hydrogenated vegetable oils were the cause for almost all diseases, illnesses, kind of dis-ease in the Western world and kind of coming up places in the world. There was a guy called Weston Price, and he did amazing research into kind of diets, like indigenous tribes and their diets and stuff, and he found that if they added in processed sugar, flour, hydrogenated vegetable oils, they started getting things like they'd never seen before, like cancers and all of these different kind of new age disease type things, and this book was on the premise that this was the cause of it. So I cut out processed sugar, flour and hydrogenated vegetable oils after I read that book, and you're actually forced to eat a more healthy diet if you cut these out. So I recommend, if nothing else, cut out processed sugar, flour and hydrogenated vegetable oils, and you will start to feel better and eat better. So that's kind of the video on diet. In my mind, it affects recovery, energy, digestion, functions of your abdominal wall, emotional, mental health, immune system, diseases. Remember about biochemical individuality and remember about the metabolic typing. Try and figure out what you are so that you feel good, so that you can train good, so that you can go to the gym again and again and recover. Hope you found this video informational and helpful. Train hard.